Hello, every pony. Scar89 here. It's 7 o'clock in the afternoon, night, whatever. So I thought I would put up another chapter of Hoennshy because it takes forever to get these loaded and edited and whatnot. So yeah, before I start, I would very much like to thank Phoenix, uh who actually said that he listened to this. So thanks, Phoenix. So without further ado, here is chapter 3 of Hoennshy. So get comfortable, because it's also a long one, just like last chapter. Okay, chapter 3 Memories. Rainbow Dash awoke with a throbbing headache. She lied there for a moment, dazed. The reality of what happened now dawned on her. Feeling something heavy pushing her into the dirt, she squirmed her way out from underneath. One hoof after the other, she got to a good point of leverage and shook the weight off, her body now free to stretch. She closed her eyes and spread her wings, taking away some of the pressure and aches her body felt from the trip. Sighing, she turned around and opened her eyes. Quickly she stepped back in confusion and noticed an unconscious pink lump where she laid. She trotted over and poked it. "Pinkie Pie? Did you really have to follow me here?" she asked, ceasing to poke the pink pony. Sighing, she realized Pinkie was still asleep and looked around at her new surroundings. There were a lot more trees than she had anticipated, especially after hearing how distraught Fluttershy was. Surely that would have been the reason, if any, she thought. Looking up, she noticed how oddly positioned the clouds were, especially around a town. I want to apologize. They're watching a movie downstairs and it's kind of loud. There were no Pegasi in the sky taking care of or placing the cumulonimbus clouds in the distance, nor any of the cumulus or the Arcus clouds. That's weird. It's almost as if... "Hey, Rainbow Dash!" Pinkie Pie yelled out in excitement, causing Rainbow to stagger forward in shock. Rainbow quickly turned around to see the pink pony already bouncing around as if nothing happened. "You're finally awake! That's good, because you weren't when I found you, so I decided to continue sleeping while you had your little nap." Rainbow Dash groaned. "Wait, you slept on top of me on purpose?" She shook her head. "Never mind that. Why did you follow me here?" "So you wouldn't be alone, silly!" she continued, bouncing to Rainbow's dismay. Sighing, she tried to find a sign or clue as to where they were. Many earth ponies were about, seeming aloof to the entire situation. For reasons Rainbow couldn't comprehend, they were all wearing clothes, something almost never seen back in Equestria, except for higher class gatherings. They were mostly very dull-colored, a striking contrast to both her and Pinkie's bright color schemes. Upon closer inspection, they were wearing belts with strange red and white balls on them, followed closely by other animals. The houses were all earth colors with red roofs. None of them stood out at all as far as the ones normally seen in Ponyville. Two stood out to her, though, two buildings with blue and red roofs with a strange white symbol garnishing their fronts. "Hey, Pinkie Pie!" This took Pinkie out of her bouncing path. "She has to be as shaken up as I am. I mean, I can't be the only one," she assumed, but continued to pester. "I'm going to fly around and check out where we are. Could you find a sign or something that tells us what town we're in?" "Okie dokie dokie," Pinkie confirmed, looking at Rainbow intensely with her hoof at salute. Afterwards, she giggled and hopped around and started her search. Rainbow looked up at the sky, spreading her wings to start her ascent. With a bend of her knees, she took off, soaring high enough to reach the start of the clouds. She looked at them puzzled, noticing the strange properties of the fluffy cumulus clouds. They were 50 times as big as the ones in Ponyville, and she could see right through them. Only a light fog covered her view past it. With no delay, she turned away from the cloud and kicked back as hard as she could, but her legs went straight through it. She stumbled back from lack of contract. She pulled them out, realizing they were also strangely wet for not being a rain cloud. Stunned, she quickly shook her hooves and continued her ascent. Above the cumulus clouds, the thunder had loomed in the distance. Arcus clouds formed a perimeter, but Rainbow didn't care. The sun shone brightly on the Pegasus's wings as she surveyed the area. Large expanse of water surrounded what seemed to be a multitude of islands. She noticed a few mountains and volcano chains in the north. No snow on their peaks. Rainbow started panting. A large wave of humidity swept through the air from the west, making it hard for her wings to function properly. Confident that she had everything she needed, she started to head back down toward Pinky, who was talking to an older gray mare. Pinky! She called out, knocking Pinky out of her string of rapid-fire conversations. With her hooves now safely planted on one of the dirt roads, she trotted over. The mare quickly broke off and left as Rainbow got closer. Did you find out anything? Yeah, according to this one lady, we're in... What was it? She paused to think. Oh, Pindleferg Town. Pinky closed her eyes and smiled. Rainbow scratched her head. Are you sure, Pinkie Pie? That's a really weird name for a town. Oh, I'm completely sure, Pinky stated confidently. Rainbow turned her head and noticed a sign near the eastern path out of town. It was just out of sight for her to read it, so she squinted and inched closer. After only a few steps, it came into focus and printed in black type. You are now leaving Petalburg Town, entering Route 102 to Olddale Town. She brought her head back and turned to Pinky, who was still smiling her somewhat dopey smile. Pinkie Pie? The name of this town is on the sign over there. That's weird. I must have missed it, Pinky said, her smile fading to thoughtful gaze. Did you at least find something about Fluttershy? Rainbow started pacing, trying to shake off the humidity. Not too much. Some pony told me that she saw a yellow Pegasus flying in the eastern last night, but that could have been any pony, Pinky said, gazing east, seemingly trying to point Rainbow Dash in that direction. Rainbow followed her cue and cocked her head. Well, if that's all we've got, I say we go for it. She turned to Pinky confidently. All right, I'll fly up and check it out. You search on the ground and we'll meet in the next town over. Got it? Got it! Pinky exclaimed, then promptly hopped off into the forest. Rainbow spread her wings and rocketed into the air, trying to keep the humidity out of her mind. She turned with the western wind and began her search. Fluttershy jolted awake, panting. She sighed, letting the morning sun warm her coat. Placing her hoof on her forehead, she tried to alleviate the headache her dream must have caused. But something felt off. She took her hoof off her head and looked at it, her eyes widening at the sight. It was pink and fleshy, with 5 fingers jutting from the outside. It was garnered with a green fingerless cloth with a white collar. Her breathing became heavier and heavier as she stared. She blinked, and her hoof reappeared where the hand once was. Breathing a sigh of relief, she laid back down into the grass and looked at the canopy. The yellow light of the sun created a halo of light surrounding the trees. Fluttershy had seen this many times, but it seemed to be dancing with color that morning. A light western wind blew through her hair, letting her mind work out her already frantic morning. Beside her, she heard a small rustle in the grass. She turned her head and noticed Alurse still sleeping soundly underneath the blanket. Oh, how could I have forgotten about Alurse? Fluttershy thought. Her mind was still racing from events from yesterday, so much that her treat go seemed to be inconsequential. She lifted her hoof and tapped lightly on the blanket. It's time to wake up. It's a brand new... She paused. That's strange. She tapped the blanket once more, feeling a hard shell underneath. Confused, she grabbed the blanket with her teeth and lifted it slowly. Rays of light illuminated the creature, making Fluttershy take a step back, the blanket now completely torn off. It was a small green turtle with a yellow underbelly and a hard brown and black striped shell laying on its back. A small sprout made its place on the top of its head. Fluttershy went in closer to investigate. Alurse? Is that you? The turtle's eyes slowly opened. It turned its head to Fluttershy, and it smiled at her. Twah! It let out, standing and getting closer to the timid Pegasus. It reached her right foreleg and started rubbing its head against her. She looked down and smiled. Oh, yes, you must be him. At that moment, her stomach began to rumble violently, causing her to take notice. With how hectic yesterday was, I must have forgotten to get food, she said to Alurse and herself. Fluttershy didn't seem to be bothered by the complete species change her new friend went through. She thought that must be normal for the types of creatures she found, but must have forgotten during the truck ride. Come on, let's go get some food. There must be something in Petalburg. She clamored, scooping up Alyrus and the blanket and placed them on her back. Facing away from the rising sun, she made her way through the new set of dirt roads, opting not to fly with her new, more fragile friend. The path was very similar to the two she had already been down, but she saw many more ponies walking around. She tried to walk through unnoticed. The last encounter with a pony with a Pokemon wasn't the most pleasant. A dark blue pony was in the distance with a striped ferret, battling some wild animal. She was shocked, trying to slip by as she was distracted, hoping that even with her less than functional camouflage she wouldn't be seen. But she jumped back as the filly cried out, "Hey, you! You with the turtwig!" Fluttershy looked away and continued walking. "Hey, I'm talking to you! Let's see what that turtwig is made of!" the filly continued to shout. Fluttershy turned to the filly. "I'm sorry, I don't fight." The filly stood dumbfounded. She huffed and trotted away, continuing her hunt. Fluttershy made sure to avoid every other encounter along the way, dashing into shrubbery and flying over rock faces to stay out of view. Slowly but surely she made her way through the forest path. The sun was reaching the apex of the sky. Fluttershy turned back to see how far she had gone, and Oldale Town was nowhere in sight. Looking ahead, there wasn't a single pony to be found. She breathed a sigh of relief, then lied down. The lack of food and rest made her trip arduous. The whole world seemed to be spinning for her. The events of the past few days still fresh in her mind. Whenever she tried to think of what happened before the ride in the truck, she couldn't recall a single memory. It was as if her life started in that pitch-black room. She buried her head into her hooves, exhausted and confused. Ever since she woke up, she felt as if there was always something amiss, as if the world was shifting around her. Alyrus started calling out towards the west. Fluttershy popped her head out from her hooves and looked over to the distance. She squinted, noticing something pink bouncing toward her. She shook herself off and stood up, trying to get out of the way before she found herself being hounded for another fight. The weakness she felt in her knees made it hard to get up. One hoof after the other she finally got up, but her knees shook, causing her to not be able to move. She started panting with worry, watching the bouncing peak object come closer. With one hoof she broke her stable footing and took one step, but fell face first into the dirt. When she finally got her head off the ground, the pink pony was standing right above her, giving her a strange but calming look. "Hey, Fluttershy, what are you doing playing in the dirt?" the filly clamored, hopping around Fluttershy. "Fluttershy?" she thought. The name sounded familiar to her, but was foreign all the same. She tried to keep up with the pony's bouncing, but had trouble. "I'm sorry, you have the wrong pony," she stated, hoping this would cause the pony to leave her alone. "Don't be silly, of course I have the right pony." She took in a large gasp. "Oh, I know, you're playing a game, aren't you? I don't know you for being such a good game player. Fluttershy, ooh, what are we playing? Wait, don't tell me, let me guess. Ponies and Griffins? Or... Fluttershy cut her off. No, please stop. I'm not trying to play anything. Just don't ask me to fight you. Please?" Something was very odd about this pony, she thought. She wasn't wearing any clothes and was much more brightly colored than any of the ponies she saw on the trail. Her pink mane contrasted her blue and yellow balloon marks on her flank, her curly, frizzy pink hair bouncing around as she did. "Fight? I know you don't fight. What kind of friend would I be to not know that? I'm so glad I found you so quickly. We were so worried back at Twilight's that I had to come help find you." "I still don't know what you're talking about. My name's May, not Fluttershy," she responded, causing the pink pony to slow down. "Excuse me, but I have to get going." She wobbled back up to her hooves, dug down enough to start moving. She slowly made her way past the pony, but she could already see her start to follow. "Please, leave me alone," she squeaked, moving as fast as her hooves could take her. "Fluttershy, are you all right? It's me, Pinkie Pie!" The name hit Fluttershy like a ton of bricks, but she kept going. Pinkie Pie seemed so familiar to her, as did the name Fluttershy, but it hurt to think about it. She just kept moving. A few hundred yards of chase left her even more exhausted, so much so that she slammed into a low-flying Pegasus. She bowled over backwards, sending Alyrus flying into the tall grass. Dizzy, she tried to get back up, but her vision started to double and wobble. She tried to shake it off, but her mental and physical exhaustion was too much. Whoops, sorry about, was all she heard before she collapsed into the grass. Incomprehensible noise began to make their way to Fluttershy's ears. She felt consciousness returning to her once more. Her eyes slowly opened, seeing a blue Pegasus with rainbow-colored hair looking down at her. She quietly grunted, exerting all her efforts to get up. Oddly, her knees weren't shaking like they were before, and her hunger and thirst seemed to be less of an issue. Fluttershy, you're awake, finally! The Pegasus said excitedly, but cool. Sorry for bumping into you earlier. I must have been going faster than I thought and wasn't paying attention. It's quite all right, she whispered, overwhelmed by the Pegasus's presence. If you would excuse me, I need to get to Petalburg Town. I haven't had any food or water for a few days now. The Pegasus looked at her with a screwed look. Fluttershy, are you all right? You sound kinda off. Oh, she did that to me when I found her. I think she's just playing a game or something, Pinky assured the Pegasus. I'm not playing a game, Fluttershy tried to yell, wings opened, but shrank back and folded them. Just say you want to fight me so you can leave me alone afterwards, she squeaked, continuing to try to shake her followers. Also, my name's not Fluttershy, it's May. The Pegasus groaned. All right, you aren't Fluttershy. I'll play your game, she said, trotting closer. My name's Rainbow Dash. How are you? She groaned even louder. Man, why am I even doing this? Fluttershy stepped back into a defensive position. Rainbow Dash. The name stuck out to her more so than Pinkie Pie did. Wait, Rainbow Dash? Where have I heard that? Did I really forget her name? No, it's just stress. What would Rainbow Dash do? She let out a small scream. Her head felt like it split in two. Visions, voices, and events furiously flashed through her head. She saw a city in the clouds, movable clouds. She could feel herself falling from the sky into a pack of butterflies. The explosion of a sonic rainbow blasted her eardrums, and the joy of gaining her cutie mark filled her heart with glee. She saw Ponyville, her cottage, where the sick animals she cared for lay to rest in their beds. The day she opened up to twilight, facing down the Manticore and Nightmare Moon. It all filled her vision as clear as day. Tears formed in her eyes as she ducked her head into her chest. She could feel her bunny angel thumping his foot into her leg. Her stare down with a giant dragon on a mountain top. Princess Celestia's phoenix Philomena turning to ash in her hands. Everything. Tears burned down her cheek as she let out a final scream. Her mind finally went blank, causing her to collapse. She was out of breath, but her mind finally stabilized. She violently shook her head and forced her eyes open. Her breath sharply stopped. The world around her seemed brighter, sounds clearer and crisper. Slowly, she breathed normally again, smiling. She looked to Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie, who were looking at each other with worry in their eyes. Sorry for scaring you. I've had a rough few days. They both looked over and breathed a sigh of relief. Are you all right, Fluttershy? Do you recognize me? Rainbow Dash asked, her wings still open in a defensive position. Oh, yes, both you and Pinkie Pie. She shuffled her forehoofs, but perked her ears up. So, why'd you go all crazy on us? Miss us too much already? Rainbow Dash asked, lightly hitting Fluttershy's back, causing a smile. Ow! To escape the fragile Pegasus's mouth. Come on, we'll help you get some food. We aren't too far from Pendleburg, I think. She caught herself and groaned. Well, whatever. Tell us, what happened back there? Fluttershy lowered her head, going over everything that happened. Two strings of memory fought for attention in her mind, but she was able to separate the two even with her fading energy. I'll talk about it after I get some food. I'm so hungry, she said, looking around for where Alurse went off to. Alurse popped his head out from the tall grass and ran as fast as he could over to Fluttershy. He stopped and looked at the two other ponies, smiling. I guess he likes you two. Great! Now we don't have to introduce ourselves, Pinkie Pie responded gleefully and started hopping down the path to Petalburg. So, what's with the turtle? I mean, I wouldn't put it past you to immediately start talking to animals when you came here, Rainbow Dash joked, glancing over at Alurse. He's a turtwig, I guess, Fluttershy explained. At least that's what those other ponies called him. I never actually got a chance to check. They continued with Petalburg town drawing ever closer. They could see the red rooftops in the distance and faint silhouettes of ponies trotting around and conversing. Pinkie Pie was already at the edge of town, looking around for some place to grab some food. The rest of the trip was rather quiet. Neither pony wanted to waste Fluttershy's breath before she even got into town. Details of the town showed themselves to Fluttershy, whose wobbly legs worked frantically to get her in. "Over here! I found something!" Pinkie Pie shouted, hopping slowly towards a building in the middle of the town. After a few more yards, the trail came to a stop, merging into the dirt roads of the town. "We're coming, Pinkie Pie! Just hold on!" Rainbow Dash yelled, continuing to watch over Fluttershy. "Almost there! Just a little more!" Fluttershy took her first steps into Petalburg, relieved. "Thanks, Rainbow—" She was cut off by a loud ringing coming from her backpack. She jumped. Erlurch followed suit. Rainbow Dash quickly looked over, wings spread. "What's going on? Is that from my bag?" "Well, I don't have anything on me, so it must be," Rainbow responded, beginning to rummage through her bag. She grabbed the Pokédex and felt it vibrating, causing her teeth to chatter. "I think it's this," she said, the flat casing still in her mouth. She set it down and studied it, the blue light on the side constantly blinking. "I think you open it like this," Fluttershy said, hitting the button, causing the front to flip open. It revealed a small screen and a set of speakers. The beeping stopped and a strange monotone voice began to relay from it. "Trainer, 78342. Shh. You have a gym fight at Petalburg Gym, scheduled for 9:30 p.m. tonight. Reminder, failure to show up at your scheduled time is grounded for disqualification in the Hoenn League, and you must wait 3 days to appeal your case." The Pokédex beeped and the message stopped. Both the Pegasus looked at each other confused. "Wait, is this what that fighting thing was all about?" Rainbow asked, breaking the silence. "A league?" Fluttershy couldn't imagine what it's like. She shuddered just thinking about it. "That sounds so awesome!" Rainbow yelled out, shocking Fluttershy. "A whole competitive league set up with the automated messages when just entering towns? I have to come watch this." "Can we just get some food, please?" Fluttershy demanded, trying to break Rainbow's train of thought. Oh, right," Rainbow said, folding her wings back down. They continued on in silence to the building Pinkie was waiting by. A small twinge of pain coursed through Fluttershy's head. She ran through the memories of the girl thoroughly, but couldn't find an answer as to why the pain re-emerged. She decided to let it go and try not to pay any attention to anything until she had something in her stomach. "By the way, you might want to clean up a bit first. When you were knocked out, we tried carrying you back to town, but we kind of dragged you a bit." Fluttershy ignored the comment and caught up to Pinkie Pie. The building she was waiting by was a red-roofed building like all the others, but had an outside terrace with iron-laced tables and chairs with small cushions. Many a pony were dining on exotic fruits and grains neither of them had ever seen. A stallion exited the building and cleared his throat, grabbing the attention of the three. "Are you madames waiting for a table? We have no wait time this afternoon." "Oh, great!" Fluttershy spoke up and trotted to the closest empty table and sat down. "How about here, if that's fine with you girls?" she called, hoping that they wouldn't object. "Looks fine," Rainbow commented, flying over to sit next to her friend. Pinkie Pie followed suit. So, do you have any money in this strange bag you've got there?" Fluttershy paused for a moment, then quickly rummaged through her bag. Erlurch stepped off, letting her check every nook and cranny. Before long, she stumbled upon a small bag that jangled with the sound of metal. "This must be it. I knew there would be some in here." She took it and placed it on the table, untwisting the tie to get it open. Erlurch climbing back on top of the bag and waited patiently for his food. "So, who gave you that anyway?" Rainbow pried as the waiter brought the 3 menus. "A mare who is, I guess, supposed to be my mother," Fluttershy said, scanning the menu. "I woke up in the back of a moving truck, and she started talking to me as if I were her daughter." "Ooh, they have a citrus berry medley! That sounds tasty!" Pinkie spouted, then looked up at the 2 Pegasus. "Ooh, were you talking about your trip here? Keep talking, I want to hear more." "That
does sound pretty good, Fluttershy responded. Anyway, she brought me into the house that the truck was parked in front of. Initially, I refused, but she dragged me in. I really think that people believe me to be this May girl.
She continued browsing. Rainbow and Pinkie were at full attention.
Every time I did something that my new memories were telling me I shouldn't do, I always felt a slight pain in my head. It started off small, but gradually became worse, especially when I refused to fight that colt.
Rainbow Dash interrupted. Wait, a colt? Why would he want to fight you?
To be honest, I'm not sure. Maybe it has something to do with the league my device talked about earlier.
Glasses of water were delivered to their table. Fluttershy stirred around the ice in the glass as she continued.
Also, he didn't want to fight me, but a nurse whom I got from the colt's father. He seemed ready to fight, but I just couldn't. During the middle of that crisis was when Twilight contacted me. That's probably why I sounded like I was in danger.
Wait, your turtle was ready to fight? Like, without being provoked? Rainbow asked, sipping her water.
Maybe that's how they play. They must love roughhousing, Pinkie added.
Fluttershy looked down at Alerce, thinking back to last night.
Maybe...
Quickly, she scrambled back up and brushed her hair aside.
By the way, when did you two get here?
This morning. Well, at least daybreak, Pinkie said, looking around trying to find the waiter. Fluttershy started thinking.
Did they cause all this weird stuff to happen by coming here this morning? No, I can't blame them, but it is strange considering the timing.
She looked at them both, then glanced down at Alerce.
You know Alerce here? He was a gecko yesterday.
Rainbow Dash's mouth dropped open. She closed it and looked at Fluttershy, with a hint of skepticism. Pinkie sat down her menu, looking at Fluttershy with a sense of wonder. That can't happen, you know that, Rainbow said, her voice cracking. The waiter approached the table, interrupting the three's talk, and took their orders. The Earth ponies scribbled down their requests and left, leaving the three to continue. The humidity had dropped and as the sun began arching down toward the horizon.
It's true. When I woke up this morning, Alerce had become a turtle. It was surprising to say the least.
She sipped some more of her water and continued.
Anyway, what's happening in Ponyville? How did you even get here? Or why did you risk coming to get me?
She couldn't imagine why it took her so long to ask.
Originally, it was just Rainbow Dash who volunteered to get sent by Twilight, saying something like, I don't want to leave my bestest friend behind.
Pinkie opened with a mocking tone. Hey! Rainbow shouted, staring at Pinkie. Pinkie giggled and continued,
Hee! Sorry, Rainbow. Anyway, Twilight said that she's seen this book at Canterlot Library, so the rest of the girls are going to go there and find the missing spell pages.
Fluttershy spat out her drink, getting some on the others.
Twilight doesn't have the spell to bring us back? We're stuck here until she finds it?
Don't worry, Rainbow said, kicking her leg up on the table. I'm sure she'll find it in no time. Why don't we just relax while we're here and just enjoy ourselves?
Yes, but my animals. Yeah, it'll be fun. Maybe we can see how the league thing goes, Pinkie interrupted, eyeing the waiter coming with plates full of food. She sharply gasped, The food's here! Let's dig in!
The waiter rolled his eyes and sighed at Pinkie's enthusiasm, setting the plate down in front of them. Fluttershy had never seen food like this before. A normal meal in Ponyville seemed plain in comparison. The salad was filled with bright yellow, red, blue, and orange fruits of all different shapes. The lettuce with a crisp dark green drizzle in what appeared to be a red vinaigrette with multitudes of visible herbs and spices. She immediately started digging into it, trying to savor every bite. With her ravenous hunger depleting, she had nearly forgot about Alerce, whose small meal was still on the table.
Oh, I'm sorry, Alerce,
Fluttershy apologized softly, grabbing the plate and setting it on the ground near the hungry Turtwig. The instant the plate touched the ground, Alerce started chowing down. Fluttershy smiled and rose up to finish her meal, taking in the little amount of solace she could find before the moon rose on her inevitable fight. With a groan, Twilight blocked the light that was shining in her eyes with her hoof and sat up. She was brought to her bed again, she noticed. Lifting off her bedsheet, she opened her eyes and checked the mirror. Her hair was a mess, but she expected that. Using her horn, she magically grabbed her hairbrush and started her morning routine. Her left ear perked up from murmurs coming from downstairs. With striking efficiency, she finished her route and slowly trotted downstairs, still groggy from her sleep. She looked around the library's main room and saw Applejack, Rarity, and Spike talking amongst themselves. Owlicious, her owl, was resting on his perch near the window, sleeping from a long night's patrol of the home. Applejack looked up at Twilight and hollered, "Look who's finally awake!" "Hey, girls," and Spike, "how long was I out? Did everything go all right?" "You were only out for the night. Oh, and it went perfectly, darling," Verity answered, flipping her mane. "I must say the light show was much better inside than in my boutique." Twilight looked at the three, puzzled. "Where's Pinky? Is she coming later?" Verity and Applejack looked at each other, worried. Twi? Pinky was whisked off with Rainbow." "What?" Twilight's eyes shrank as shock and terror struck her. "Oh, no, 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 no. This is bad." She started panicking. "I don't even know if the spell I used was the right deviation. And I only, it to work on one pony. What if sending two over screws everything up? I might have killed my two friends." Twilight buried her head in her hooves, trying to go over everything in her head again. "Why did I even do this?" "Well, Rainbow's confidence rubs off quite easily. Don't worry about it, Twi. I'm sure with Rainbow's stubbornness, they'll find a way to survive. Besides, we need you to be at your best when we go and find that spell," Applejack assured her. Twilight brought her head back up. "You're right. I need to write to Princess Celestia about getting into the Royal Archives." She felt her stomach rumble as she spoke. I need to get some food before we plan anything." "I've got you covered, Sugar Cube," Applejack proudly stated, trotting to a cart full of apples and tossed some over to Twilight. "Thanks, Applejack," Twilight said, biting down on one of the large red apples. "All right, I'll need to write a letter to Princess to request access to the royal libraries. In the meantime, you two I get at least enough supplies for a day's trip. I'll meet you outside near the main road out of town when I'm ready." "You got it, Twi," Applejack said, making her way out of the library and back to her home in Sweet Apple Acres. "I'll be sure to pack for everything," Rarity stated, walking out the door. "Make sure you don't overpack," Twilight yelled, just getting her message out before she heard the loud thud of a wooden door closing. She sighed and turned to Spike, who had already taken out an empty scroll and quill to relay her message. "Good. Now take a note." Spike started writing out her message. "Dear Princess Celestia, I'm writing you to request access to the Royal Archives in Canterlot. My studies have brought me to a dead end, and the edition of the book I have been using is incomplete. This study is of utmost importance, and it is imperative that I finish my research on the spell as quickly as possible. My friend's safety hinges on the information in the complete copy of Professor Arcane Griswold's text, and I do not wish to endanger their livelihood. I earnestly await your answer. Your faithful student, Twilight Sparkle." With that, Spike rolled up the scroll and blew fire on it, turning it into a purple mist that flew out of the cracks of the window. Twilight went back upstairs and grabbed a pair of saddlebags, with a purple six-pointed star garnishing its front, and slipped it on. After getting the straps snug, she met up again with Spike, who was holding another scroll. "She responded really quickly this time," Spike said, preparing to read it. "My faithful student, Twilight. Of course you can use the royal libraries. You are my student, after all." Spike stopped. "She doesn't sound too worried." "You know the princess," Twilight said, sticking apples, small flasks of water, and some blankets into her bag. "She's probably just confident enough in my abilities and trusts I'll get things taken care of." She turned to Spike. "Spike, could you take care of Fluttershy's animals while we're away?" "You know what happened last time, Twilight," Spike returned, shrugging his shoulders. "I guess it wouldn't hurt." "Great. Make sure you lock up when you leave," Twilight reminded him, opening the front door. "I shouldn't be gone for more than 2 days. If anything does happen, I'll write you a letter, all right?" "Good luck," Spike yelled out as Twilight left the house. She heard a small hoot and an apology from inside. She laughed and headed toward the eastern path out of town. The sky was covered with a thick overcast, and a cool wind pierced Twilight's coat. She sat and waited patiently for the other two to arrive, taking a pink and white striped scarf out from her bag and wrapping it around her neck. She readied herself for the three's journey to Canterlot. And that is the end of Chapter 3 of Hoennshy. I hope you enjoyed it. This one was a long one. If you hear any weird things just jumping around in the background of this, I apologize. When I edit this, there's always going to be background noise because my family watches movies downstairs and it was really loud. So, again, I apologize for that. So, I will record chapter 4 and then you can listen to that. So, until then, I will see you all later.